Discover the incredible secret that transformed Marine snipers' aim, revealed by a hidden veteran. Jake Ellis had never believed in secrets. As a mechanic in a small town, the daily grind filled with grease, tools, and the occasional outburst from a broken engine left little room for mystery. But one sweltering afternoon, as he rummaged through an old toolbox buried beneath outdated spare parts, he unearthed a yellowed letter written in his father's precise handwriting. His late father's legendary nickname had loomed over him like a specter. Inside, the words hinted at a sniping technique lost to time, said to enhance aim to ethereal levels. The moment Jake read it, he felt a stir of emotions, intrigue, desperation, but most overpowering was the burden of family expectations. His father, a sniper whose abilities were celebrated but never fully understood, cast a long shadow. Jake's status was far from honorable. A divorced father with dwindling finances, struggling to raise a son without the guidance of both a father and a financial anchor, he found himself wrestling with internal demons. Was he chasing a ghost? Reveling in painful nostalgia? Or was there potential in those letters to rebuild his life? He dreaded the idea that perhaps this endeavor could tear further at the fragile fabric of his existence. As he faced fellow veterans to discuss the letter, whispers of their skepticism stung. The stories of Jake's father were shrouded not just in reverence but a sense of caution. The more he probed, the more Jake felt resistance. Some things are better left in the past, they warned, sending ice-cold tendrils of fear snaking through his mind. Every disapproving glance weighed heavily on his heart. Did they see him as nothing more than the son of a man who bore the weight of expectation? They'd lost their chance at glory, and now Jake threatened to unearth wounds that had barely begun to heal. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Tension swelled as he wandered further into his father's past, a dangerous rabbit hole illuminated by half-hidden truths. A local businessman, charismatic yet sinister, had ties to Jake's father. Conversing with him sent jolts through Jake, an unsettling energy reverberated in their interactions. Jake began to realize that understanding his father's sniper skills was intertwined with navigating a web of moral ambiguity. The man lured him with tales of past exploits stitched with corruption, temptations Jake both yearned for and feared. His gut clenched. The line between honoring his father and descending into the kind of darkness that took root in his life became increasingly blurred. As Jake prepared for the next encounter, a nagging thought gripped him: was he merely uncovering his father's legacy, or was he setting in motion consequences he couldn't and wouldn't be able to contain? He felt the world closing in, shadows whispering secrets around him as he stood at the crossroads of discovery and danger, each step forward tightening the noose. Ultimately, the battle within himself became more harrowing than any skill learned behind the crosshairs of a sniper's scope. Was he destined to become the man he had always feared? With his son watching from the periphery, hope and dread coiled within him, leading to one inescapable truth: the upcoming confrontation would define who he truly was. The evening air felt charged as Jake prepared to confront the local businessman, George Larkin. The fluorescent lights flickered outside the greasy diner where they had arranged to meet, casting long shadows across the pavement. Everything about this felt off. The notion of uncovering family secrets now surged into an unsettling tide, threatening to drag him down. Jake's pulse quickened as he pushed through the door, the jingle of the bell above echoing his anxiety. Larkin sat in the corner booth, fingers drumming against an untouched cup of coffee, the very image of a predator waiting for prey. Upon seeing Jake, his face lit up, a facade of warmth cloaking predatory intent. "Ah, the son of the legend. How wonderful to finally meet you," he drawled, an insincere smile creeping across his lips. "Let us skip the niceties, Larkin," Jake cut in, masking the tremor in his voice. He wasn't there to be swayed by flattery or charm, he needed answers. I've got questions about my father and the techniques he used. Larkin leaned back, the smile fading as he appraised Jake. Your father had skills that went beyond the scope of his training. Skills that aren't merely about aim. Each word sent shivers down Jake's spine, as if peeling layers of his father's identity away to expose a darker truth. The air between them thickened as Jake pressed. What do you mean? The words tasted like iron on his tongue, heavy with the weight of a hidden past. Larkin's eyes sparked with amusement, a predator enjoying the anticipation of the hunt. Your father was involved in operations that aren't sanctioned methods that ensure precision at any cost, he explained, his tone inviting yet chilling. I can teach you everything he knew, but it comes with a price. Jake recoiled internally. This wasn't just about skill, it was about choices that ran deep into moral murkiness. Every fiber in Jake resisted the allure of Larkin's offer, instinct screaming at him to distance himself from this web. Was this the legacy he sought? A path bound by murky ethics and revenge? But with every second that passed, the silent growing desperation to redeem his father's name clashed against the reality that the deeper he sank, the more he risked losing himself. Determination wrestled with doubt as he settled across from Larkin, irritation brewing inside him. You think I'm here to become a monster? Jake challenged. I want to honor his memory, not sully it. Larkin chuckled, a low, sinister sound that made Jake's skin crawl. Honor? You don't understand yet, do you? It's survival. There's power in precision, and the world won't hesitate to pull the trigger on your failures. Each sentence pierced Jake's resolve, but he refused to show weakness. The defining moment before him was more than just a conversation, it was a confrontation with the moral landscape that threatened to consume him. Maintaining eye contact, Jake steadied his breath. I'll find my own way. He stood, the decision crystallizing with clarity. This venture could open doors, but he refused to step into a labyrinth of shadows and deceit. He paused at the door, the weight of the choice threatening to crush him, yet somewhere deep inside, a flicker of hope ignited. As he stepped back into the cool night, the decision burning in his chest, a voice whispered behind him, You'll come back, Jake. This isn't over. Their words echoed in his mind, taunting him. At that moment, Jake recognized the truth about himself. He was poised on the brink of a profound transformation, channeling not just his father's legacy, but forging his own path from the ashes. He couldn't shake the dread rising within him. With each step caught in the evening fog, he understood, the confrontation with his past was just beginning. The echoes of Larkin's warning loomed ominously in his thoughts as Jake pondered his next move. The time had come to face the truth about what lay hidden within him, and it wasn't just about his father anymore, it was about confronting the man he would become. The following morning, Jake woke to an unsettling crescendo of thoughts. The echoes from his confrontation with Larkin loomed large, amplifying doubt about the path he had chosen. He gazed out the window, the early sunlight slicing through the fog, illuminating the world outside. The facade of normalcy felt like a thin veil shielding him from the chaos lurking beneath surface. He got dressed mechanically, each article of clothing feeling foreign against his skin, a reminder of the unresolved turbulence inside him. As he moved through his morning routine, he reflected on Larkin's words, especially the chilling implications of his father's legacy. What skills had his father mastered? Was it the honor he sought so desperately to uphold, or something more sinister? Jake grabbed his keys, intent on clearing his mind. He needed to think. Driving along the scenic route leading to the town's outskirts, the vast landscape felt both liberating and imprisoning. The open road seemed to mock him, it was a visual metaphor of the choices stretching out before him, choices he wasn't ready to confront. With each passing tree and stretch of road, fragments of his father's past flickered in the corners of his mind. Memories of stories told around a crackling fire, lessons learned on family trips, and the palpable pride in his father's voice that had always seemed so unwavering. Yet now, those stories felt tainted, distorted by Larkin's insinuations of violence and ethical compromise. He needed guidance, someone who understood the intricacies of his father's life without the looming shadows of greed and manipulation. Suddenly, the name appeared, Beck. An old family friend, a retired sniper and trainer renowned for his honor and precision. If anyone could shed light on the truth behind his father's actions, it would be Beck. Jake's heart raced with a renewed sense of purpose. He made the decision to visit Beck's remote training facility nestled in the woods, a sanctuary for those pursuing honorable marksmanship. The drive was filled with anticipation and dread, a conflicting whirlwind of emotions, but it was a necessary step in transforming confusion into clarity. Arriving at the sprawling property, Jake was greeted by the sound of distant gunfire, the rhythm of a world dedicated to precision. As he navigated through the cluster of targets and expert trainees, the sight of people fiercely focused on their craft sparked something in him, a longing to find not just clarity about his father, but to forge a new identity based on discipline, skill, and honor. Beck emerged from a training module, a rugged figure with piercing eyes that had seen too much and understood even more. "Jake," he said, his tone light yet attentive. "What brings you out here?" The words tumbled out before Jake could compose his thoughts. He spoke of Larkin's words, the implications they bore, and the weight he carried without fully understanding who his father had been. Beck listened, nodding occasionally, his presence grounding Jake amidst the storm within. "Your father was a complicated man," Beck began, seriousness layered in his voice. He knew the stakes. But it wasn't just about the skills, it was what you do with them that defines you. Jake absorbed the wisdom, pondering the truth behind the statement. This was the key. He had to confront not just who his father was, but who he himself could become. The journey forward would require not only courage but resolve to carve his own identity distinct from the shadows left behind. As they talked, Jake's determination solidified. There was a chance to learn the skills that came with lethal precision and to understand the nature of control versus chaos, what it meant to adhere to a moral code. Just as a calm seemed to settle around them, Beck shared a haunting truth. "You're in danger, Jake. Larkin isn't just a businessman, he's a player in a dangerous game. If you pursue the truth, understand that not everyone will want you to succeed." The words echoed in Jake's mind as an impending storm blurred the horizon ahead. He had assumed that the confrontation with Larkin would be the fiercest battle, but now, there was a deeper fight brewing, a clash between the man he was becoming and the shadows lingering from the past. The stakes were high. The time had come for him to lean into the unknown, determining not only his skills but the heart of his convictions. With newfound resolve, Jake stepped forward, ready to embrace the challenges ahead, knowing every shred of clarity would come with new complexities and choices that would test him at his core. As he turned to Beck, the weight of direction loomed heavy in the air, uncertain yet invigorating. Would he navigate through the murky waters of his father's legacy while protecting the morals he aspired to uphold, or would the siren call of Larkin's world lure him into its depths? As Jake stood before Beck, the seasoned trainer surveyed him with a knowing gaze, as if assessing the very essence of his being. The distant gunfire quieted, serving as a backdrop to the gravity of their conversation. "You need to learn," Beck stated, his voice steady, revealing no hint of the hidden turmoil Jake felt within. "Learn what?" Jake asked, his impatience creeping through the edges of his questioning tone. "I know how to shoot." He abruptly recalled the lessons of his youth, days spent at the range with his father, where a .22 caliber rifle felt like an extension of his own hand. "It's not enough to pull a trigger," Beck replied sharply. "Skill isn't just about hitting the mark. It's about understanding the responsibility that comes with power. You need to find your center if you're going to face Larkin and this legacy of fear he carries." Jake's brow furrowed. The idea of a moral center felt abstract amid the chaos swirling in his mind. How could he possibly align himself when the very foundations of his life felt shaky? Yet, he couldn't shake the notion that this was the path he had chosen, one filled with contradictions. "Let's get started," Beck continued, moving toward the firing range where trainees practiced precision and focus. "Shooting isn't merely a mechanical act. It's a dance with discipline, patience, and intention. Taking a deep breath, Jake followed, trying to quell his nerves. As they reached the training station, Beck set up the rifle with measured expertise. He explained the nuances, the importance of breath control, the alignment of sight, and the quiet within the chaos. Each shot is a dialogue between you and your target, he instructed. You need to listen. The first shot reverberated through the stillness, jolting Jake's frame. He blinked, as if awakening from a dream, realizing that the chaos in his mind was mirrored in the world around him. Concentration, he whispered, letting the word guide his thoughts as he took aim again. Hours passed, and as Jake pulled the trigger, the echo of each shot began to tether him to the present. With every bullet fired, his focus sharpened, carving away the layers of doubt. He could feel the fragments of his father's shadow peeling back, revealing not only his father's errors but also his own potential for clarity. Focus on your purpose, Beck encouraged from the side, his hands steady upon Jake's shoulders as he guided him to find balance. Only through knowing what you value can you wield your skills responsibly. Jake blinked, understanding dawning within him. He needed to pinpoint his convictions, to knit them into his actions. It wasn't about emulating his father or giving in to Larkin, it was about establishing his own moral framework, deeply rooted and unshakable. Between each round, doubts crept back, taunting him with the harsh realities of Larkin's world. Yet, for every moment of hesitation, he felt a flicker of resolve sparking anew. He was no longer merely chasing clarity, he was piecing together the foundation of his identity. As the day drained into dusk, Beck led him to a quiet place overlooking the range. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows, a reminder of the interlacing past he grappled with. Now, Jake, regarding Larkin, he said carefully, you must strategize. Decide what you want from this confrontation. Jake felt the weight of the question crystallizing in his mind. What did he truly wish to achieve? Was it vengeance, honor, or something else entirely? His heart raced, not in fear but in anticipation. He had the tools now, but it was his mind that needed to align with his actions. Success requires sacrifice, Beck warned, his voice grave. What will you gamble to keep your morals intact while pursuing the truth? That question hung in the air like the fading light, heavy with implications. Jake considered the path ahead, each choice steeped in heavy consequence. The echoes of the day's lessons resonated within him, challenging him to forge a new legacy, one of integrity unbroken by turmoil. That evening, Jake drove away from the training facility, his heart pounding not just from newfound skills but with the realization of the battle brewing on the horizon. Every answer he sought came coupled with more questions, testing his resolve like never before. As the car rolled down the tree-lined road, a sense of urgency shadowed him. The need to confront Larkin was no longer just about understanding his father's legacy. It was about defining who Jake was meant to become, but how much of his own legacy was he willing to sacrifice to ensure the truth remained untouched? The stakes were rising, and with each passing moment, Jake knew the clash was inevitable. The night enveloped Jake as he navigated through familiar streets, his mind racing with the revelations from the day's training. He felt a subtle shift within, akin to the quiet before a storm. This was not merely about survival anymore. Each question Beck posed loomed larger in his thoughts, propelling him to reevaluate his purpose. What did he stand for, and more importantly, what was he willing to fight for? That stillness was disrupted when he caught sight of the flickering lights of a bar on the corner. The strong urge to drown his swirling thoughts in whiskey and distraction tugged at him. Yet, a more potent voice whispered of clarity, of honing his focus, reminding him that indulgence wouldn't lead to the strength he needed. He maneuvered past the entrance, committing to sobriety for the night. He drove to a secluded spot near the water, a place where he and his father would talk about life while casting lines for fish. But tonight, it held a different purpose. The moon shone brightly, illuminating the rippling surface of the lake, and Jake stepped out, allowing the serenity to seep in. He needed to confront the weight of his past, to unearth the motivations behind his quest against Larkin. Sitting on the hood of his car, he closed his eyes, drawing a deep breath as he considered the man his father was. The poignant blend of reverence and resentment stirred in him, reminiscent of the conversation's long since faded, a paradox of admiration caught in the web of betrayal. How could he honor the legacy without submitting to regret? He began to sketch out a plan mentally, unraveling the complexities of Larkin's empire. He needed to distinguish himself from his father's mistakes, but he also knew he had to confront the encroaching darkness directly. Beck's advice echoed, success requires sacrifice. What could he glean from the past without allowing it to define him? With each wave that lapped against the shore, Jake started to realize he had strengths he had yet to face. Perhaps the skills of negotiation he had adapted in business could be weaponized against Larkin. Understanding people's motivations, reading their fears, these were tools far deadlier than a rifle. Sure, the marksmanship Beck instilled in him would be crucial, but perhaps wisdom in conflict could prevail where sheer force faltered. Jake's resolve solidified as he gazed into the depths of the lake. There were costs involved. He would need allies, hidden truths, and perhaps even deception. Could he navigate this moral quagmire without becoming a monster himself? The battle he envisioned demanded more than physical prowess. It required the mental acuity to outmaneuver an adversary entrenched in fear and manipulation. Determined, he reached for his phone and tapped out a message to Beck. "We need to talk. I believe I can use my father's past against Larkin, but I need your guidance to do it right." Sending the message set a string of nervous energy through him, but it felt purposeful. He was no longer aimless, a plan was starting to form. With the moon high above, reflecting the potential clarity he sought, something struck him, the realization that Larkin's empire thrived on intimidation, and Jake's weapon would not just be his aim, but his intellect. As he returned to his car, he felt the weight of purpose on his shoulders. This was no longer just a mission of vengeance, but a nuanced quest filled with strategic depth and ethical boundaries. Yet even as determination surged, uncertainty gnawed at him. Would he be able to hold on to his morals while navigating this dangerous world? What if he stumbled into the kind of depravity he swore to oppose? He turned the key in the ignition, aware that with every mile he drove, he drew closer to Larkin's darkness. Jake's heart raced, excitement mingling with trepidation. The time for passive reflection had ended, the moment of truth approached. With a final glance at the serene water now shadowed by the impending storm of battle, he set off. The confrontation was inevitable, but what would it cost him to unearth the truth about himself in the process? The next morning, Jake awoke before dawn, a tiredness settling over him like a heavy blanket. The sun's first light crept into his room, illuminating surfaces marred by neglect. His mind, however, was invigorated, a battlefield of thoughts marching in alignment, driven by clarity and resolve. He pulled on a worn t-shirt that clung slightly to his damp skin, remnants of sweat from the previous night's turmoil. Today marked a pivotal turn. He was determined to shift from passive contemplation to strategic action. As he brewed a cup of coffee, the rich aroma enveloped him, a stark contrast to the anxieties brewing inside him. He needed to harness that turmoil. Jake sat at the small kitchen table, the cold wood pressing beneath him as he scribbled notes in a worn-out notebook. Lists spilled forth, potential allies from the fringes of Larkin's world were nested among the pages. A name jumped out, Carlos. An old business partner of his father's, now taloned by shadows yet rooted deeply within Larkin's operations. The thought of reaching out sent a chill down his spine. Doing so could either illuminate a path to knowledge or entrap him deeper into the abyss his father had known. However, he reminded himself that playing it safe had cost him dearly. Becoming complacent was not an option anymore. He pulled out his phone, hesitating only for a moment before typing a simple message, "Jake Dawson. I need to speak with you." He winced, the message bearing the weight of both vulnerability and resolve. Sending it felt like jumping from a ledge, and as the screen blinked with the sent confirmation, it was too late to turn back. As the day wore on, he poured himself into a regimen designed to sharpen both his body and mind. Hours flew by as he trained his marksmanship, the satisfying sound of bullets finding their mark reinforcing his resolve. Each shot punctuated his emerging understanding of balance. It wasn't just about muscle, it was about the quiet understanding of the weapon and its potential. He wasn't just a gunman now, he was an artist wielding words as deftly as a rifle. after several hours, an eager sense of anticipation thrummed through him. His phone buzzed. Carlos had agreed to meet. The thrill of an unexpected opportunity was quickly tempered by the realization of what this encounter could lead to. He couldn't expect the man to be welcoming. He would need to navigate carefully, assessing motivations, controlling the atmosphere, gleaning the information that could prove crucial against Larkin. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of fiery orange, Jake arrived at the chosen diner. The ambient noise of clinking dishes and soft conversations masked his own mounting tension. The worn booth in the dim light felt like a stage awaiting its players. He took a deep breath, grounding himself in the knowledge that this was not just a meeting with Carlos, but a step into the broader world of his father's past and his own intentions. Carlos arrived a short time later, his face appearing both wary and familiar. As they exchanged curt nods, Jake felt the weight of the upcoming conversation and recognized the vulnerability nestled within him. "Jake," Carlos said, a hint of recognition softening his features, but wariness still flickered. "It's been a while." Jake steeled himself. "I need information about Larkin," he said, keeping his voice steady, trying to convey both urgency and purpose. Carlos raised an eyebrow. "You're looking at a dangerous man, Jake. Why should I help you?" Jake knew this was the crux of their interaction. "Because I'm not just looking for revenge. I want to dismantle everything he represents. And I think with your help, we can." The challenge was accepted, but doubt lingered in the air. Could he convince Carlos of his integrity when shadows of his father's past loomed so large? The moment felt fraught with risk, yet anticipation crackled around them like static electricity. Was he ready to dig deeper into the intricacies that entangled him with Larkin's darkness? Each decision he made now would ripple out beyond himself, shaping the man he would become. As they sat across from one another, Jake felt that the true confrontation didn't lie solely with Larkin, it was also in confronting the man he had been raised to become. What choices would he make to steer the legacy he had inherited towards something better? With a measure of resolve building within him, Jake leaned in, prepared to question Carlos further, to seize every opportunity available to wrest control from Larkin's grasp. What he didn't know was that the secrets Carlos held not only concerned Larkin but also threatened to crack the very foundation of Jake's understanding of personal loyalty and betrayal. Bridges were about to burn or perhaps be reinforced. As the evening unfolded, shadows lengthened, a reminder that clarity often comes cloaked in uncertainty. Jake's heart pounded with the awareness that this was just the beginning. Would clarity accompany him through the murky waters ahead, or would he find himself drowning in choices he could not take back? Carlos leaned back, the booth creaking under his weight. His eyes narrowed, searching Jake's determined expression for the boy he once knew. There was a tension in the air thicker than the coffee aroma, and Jake could almost feel it straining the delicate balance they both had to maintain. "Dismantling Larkin is no small feat, Jake. He's not just a man, he's a system," Carlos said, each word laced with gravity. "You think you're ready for that?" Jake nodded, resolute but inwardly trembling. He was grappling not only with Larkin's power but also the potent truth of inherited legacy. "I've seen what he does to people. I want to stop him." Carlos leaned in slightly. "You're talking about crossing lines, Jake. If you want information, you'll also need to understand the cost." "What do you mean?" Jake asked, feeling the ground beneath his ambitions shift. "You can't just sit across from men like Larkin and play by the rules. You will have to fight tooth and nail, and that means you might have to get your hands dirty." Carlos's tone was somber, each word dropping like a hammer. Jake considered this, puzzling over what he was truly willing to sacrifice. He felt an undeniable pull toward violence and understanding that mimicking his father came with expectations and lessons touched with pain and betrayal. "I'm ready for whatever it takes," he replied, but doubt slipped in like a chilling breeze. Carlos studied him, trying to gauge the sincerity behind his claim. "One of my contacts can give you a lead, a weakness in Larkin's operation. But I'm warning you, it will require a direct confrontation." "Who is it?" Jake was already racing ahead in his mind, envisioning a strategy, potential tactics laid out like chess pieces on a board. Evelyn, Carlos said, the name hanging in the air. She's worked with him. A long time ago, she was a loyal employee and invaluable asset. But Larkin turned on her, just like he does to anyone close. She might have the information you need. Do you know where I can find her? Jake felt a mix of excitement and fear. Evelyn was a ghost from his father's life, and men like Larkin had a way of making ghosts vanish permanently. This is where things get really dangerous, Jake. She's not out of reach, but she has her reasons for staying hidden. Find her, and you'll find Larkin's weakness. Jake absorbed the weight of Carlos's words, and with each phrase, a building piece of a strategy ignited within him. There was another layer here, one connected to the person behind every interaction, every decision. Could he find closure by confronting those who'd suffered at Larkin's hands, letting their stories guide him through his own tangled legacy? As he prepared to leave the diner, Jake felt a familiar sense of tension prickling at the back of his mind. It was a parapet, a balancing act atop the castle of his past, teetering on his intentions. What cost are you willing to pay? Carlos's voice broke through his reverie as Jake stood to leave, mind spinning with new possibilities. I'll do what's necessary, Jake committed, though internally he questioned the veracity of his own declaration. This was his battle to wage, but every step pulled him deeper into shadows he could not fully comprehend. Carlos's expression shifted, perhaps registering some unnameable regret. The deeper you go, the darker it becomes. I hope you're prepared. Once outside, the cold air washed over Jake, his breath fogging before him. He clutched his jacket against the chill, both from the temperature and the weight of his decisions. Was he truly ready to tread this perilous path? Jake understood now that his next move was pivotal. Finding Evelyn could unlock the final pieces of his father's puzzle, but it could also plunge him further into a world where loyalties shifted like smoke and mirrors. With resolve reinvigorating each step, Jake grabbed his phone, tapping out a quick message to Carlos. Let us meet again. I need everything you have on her. As he turned to walk away, he sensed that he was no longer just running toward answers, he was sprinting toward a collision course. That would force him to confront not just Larkin, but the darkness buried deep within himself. As he stepped into the dim streetlights, Jake knew that this journey was just beginning. What awaited him in the shadows of the city? The sharpness of the night echoed with whispers of unknown dangers lurking just out of sight. Would he emerge from this labyrinth with clarity, or would he find himself ensnared in a trap he had unwittingly set for himself? Jake's fingers hovered over the screen of his phone, uncertainty gnawing at his resolve as he wrestled with the implications of reaching out to Evelyn. He had just committed to a path laden with uncertainty, and it felt as though he was strapped into a roller coaster, careening toward an inevitable plunge. Hesitation seeped into his bones, the weight of impending decision saturating his lungs. The city outside reflected his turmoil, a jumble of chaotic lights and bustling shadows, each moment flickering with urgency. He moved through the streets like a ghost, indifferent to the passing faces lost in their own narratives. What weighed higher on his conscience, seeking revenge against Larkin or uncovering the truth behind his father's legacy? Both were intertwined, tugging at him in opposite directions. A sudden memory invaded his thoughts, his father standing tall, brows furrowed, whispering tales of honor and betrayal that painted the world as black and white, good and evil. Don't let emotions cloud your judgment, Jake, he would say, his voice a baritone echoing in Jake's mind. But emotions were unpredictable, much like Larkin's reign over the people, dispensing pain while smirking behind a facade of authority. Determination surged within Jake as he navigated through the knot of humanity. He needed to face Evelyn, a woman who had danced on the fringes of Larkin's world, a woman who might hold the final piece of the puzzle that could either redeem or ruin him. He reached a decision, not entirely comfortable with it, but resolute nonetheless. Carlos, he texted, hitting send before he could second-guess himself. How do I find Evelyn? The response came quickly, a testament to Carlos's connections. She frequents a bar downtown, the Broken Compass. I'll give you a heads up if I hear anything. Jake slid his phone back into his pocket, the clatter of voices merging with the racing of his heart. The broken compass. The name alone conjured images of lost souls seeking direction amidst chaos. He wondered what secrets lay beneath its roof and if he could handle the gravity of what he might uncover. As the bar came into view, the neon signs flickered like unreliable stars against the evening sky. Hesitation crept back in as he pushed through the door, the warmth spilling over him like a blanket, but the atmosphere was thick with tension. Shadows clung to the corners, patrons buried in their drinks or lost in hushed conversations. He spotted her almost immediately. Evelyn, her gaze distant but piercing, red hair cascading over her shoulders like flames, a stark contrast against the muted colors surrounding her. She was no longer the loyal asset Carlos had described but a woman shaped by betrayal and loss, eyes carrying the weight of stories untold. Jake approached, his heart pounding fiercely. "Evelyn?" He managed, fortifying himself against the onslaught of emotions threatening to spill over him, her head turned slightly, assessing him as if evaluating a risk. "Who wants to know?" There was a slight tremor in her voice, a flicker of challenge dancing behind her guarded demeanor. "I'm looking for information about Larkin," he replied, trying to project confidence even as uncertainty clawed at his throat. A moment passed, the air between them thick with unshared history and unspoken fears. "Information comes at a price," she countered, her expression hardening. Jake's resolve wavered, a reality check hitting him hard. Here was a woman whose life had been impacted irrevocably by Larkin's games. Her weighty words echoed Carlos's warning, revealing the morose truth of their shared struggle. "What do you know?" he pressed, dialing down the urgency to control the fear surging inside him. "More than you think," she said quietly, leaning closer, intrigue lurking in her tone. "But the truth can shatter everything you hold dear." "Then maybe it's time for some shattering," Jake murmured, conscious of the precarious tipping point he was standing on. With those words exchanged, the course of his journey shifted dramatically. He felt on the precipice of discovery, a junction that would either guide him toward resolution or plunge him into chaos. As Evelyn's story began to unfurl before him, Jake could sense the walls closing and the truths of the past leaking into the present. There was no turning back. The moment of revelation was near. Would he be able to handle the truth when it came? Would it lay bare his father's legacy for what it truly was, or would it darken his path even further? The shadows around them felt almost alive, pulsing with a new urgency, and somewhere deep inside, Jake realized that these were the moments that truly mattered. What awaited him as the layers of deceit began to peel away? Jake felt the heat of Evelyn's words hang in the air like smoke, slow to dissipate. The promise of revelations tinged with danger. He steadied himself against the oppressive weight of the moment, his mind racing to absorb her cryptic warning. The flicker of candles around them cast long shadows, reflections of his unresolved turmoil. What truths lay in this woman's grasp, and at what cost? "I need to know the truth," Jake declared, trying to mask the uncertainty that belied his steady tone. "I can handle it." Evelyn raised an eyebrow, skepticism etched across her features. "Is that so? Handling the truth means accepting the ugly alongside the good. Can you do that? What's at stake for you?" The question struck him like a punch to the gut. What was at stake? His father's legacy, his own desire for revenge, the hollow certainty of his past. Everything was intertwined, and he resented how desperate he sounded even to himself. "What I feel doesn't matter," he said, forcing his voice to remain steady. "I just want the information." Her gaze pierced him, searching for the sincerity behind his resolve. Perhaps she saw the vulnerability lurking under his bravado. Perhaps she recognized a shared struggle. "You're naive if you think it won't change you," she warned softly, an unexpected gentleness threading through her words. "People like Larkin don't operate alone. Their webs are intricate and designed to suffocate. Step carefully." Jake swallowed hard, feeling something within him begin to break. Each word she spoke felt like it was dragging him deeper into a quagmire. But the desire to confront Larkin outweighed the risks, the anger and guilt wrapped around him, solidifying his determination even more. Whatever it takes, Evelyn. Then let me share. Just as her defenses dropped, Jake could see the flicker of pain in her eyes. It was an obstacle, one they both needed to bypass in order to reach the truths that lay buried. Larkin's reach extends far beyond what you've imagined. He's tied to rogue operations, shady deals, and your father he was involved. Jake's heart raced, the revelation spinning him further into turmoil. His father's life and values were now stained by a shadow he had never anticipated. Involved? In what? Tell me, his voice crackled with urgency. Corruption, she replied, her tone now a quiet whisper. He was an integral piece in ensuring Larkin remained unchallenged, a silent partner of sorts. Your father believed he was protecting something greater, but in the end she trailed off, leaving the implications swirling in the air like uninvited guests. Shock coursed through Jake. He had spent so long building an image of his father grounded in honor and dignity. Yet here was Evelyn, unearthing possibilities he had never been ready to confront. If true, this revelation threatened to dismantle his entire childhood. The man he had revered could be synonymous with the very villain he sought to bring down. Why are you telling me this? He breathed, his mind grappling with the implications. How could she possibly know the depths of his soul's turmoil? Because, she answered, leaning closer as though sharing a secret meant for only him. I've been where you are. The quest for revenge blinded me once, pulled me deeper into Larkin's world. I want a different path for you, Jake, one where you can seize the truth, not let it seize you. Her raw honesty struck him. He had imagined control over the situation, but the deeper he traveled into this labyrinth, the clearer it became that the only tangible hold he had was over his own choices. Jake leaned back slightly, a flood of conflicted emotion washing over him. This moment transcended the audible tension in the bar. He could forge ahead with revenge motivated by anger or step back to save his father's legacy and find his own light in the aftermath. What would he surrender if he chose vengeance? As thoughts collided within him, an unsettling realization dawned. The clarity he sought was already in his grasp, concealed within the annals of his father's choices. A buried strength flickered to life in response to the turmoil. Maybe, he finally said, voice low yet resolute. Maybe my father's past is a mirror I have to face, not a legacy I must uphold. Evelyn nodded, a flicker of respect brimming in her gaze. Now we're getting somewhere. As the silhouettes danced and flickered in the low light of the bar, Jake knew he stood on a precipice of decision. The path forward loomed ahead, dark and twisted, decades of shadowed choices trailing behind him. In confronting his father's legacy, he would simultaneously confront Larkin's demons, untangling revenge from redemption. What awaited Jake on this arduous journey would test his resolve and reshape his understanding of everything he held sacred. With each revelation about him and the world he moved in, the stakes climbed higher, and then, just as a shroud of clarity began to unfurl, Carlos's text flashed on his phone, a harbinger of news from a place of danger. We need to talk. Now. The word sent a jolt of urgency through him. Had the enemy begun to move? Would Jake find himself in a direct confrontation with Larkin sooner than anticipated? The adrenaline surged through Jake as he stared at Carlos's message, blaring like a siren on the dim screen of his phone. The urgency clawed at his insides, pushing him to act. He reluctantly excused himself from Evelyn, the tantalizing weight of her revelations trailing behind him like a cloak as he stepped out of the broken compass into the chilly night air. The world felt different now, shadows previously shrouded in ambiguity loomed disproportionately large. He was grappling with truths that strained at the seams of his understanding, the realization that his father, a supposed paragon of honor, had colluded with the very darkness he sought to vanquish. With purposeful strides, Jake hopped into his car, brow furrowed. The conflicting emotions about his father mixed with thirst for retribution against Larkin propelled him forward. Clarity had begun to form, yet still felt miles away, shrouded in uncertainties. Where did revenge end and justice begin? As he drove, each mile felt like a tumultuous journey deep into the crucible of his choice. Leaning against the steering wheel, he navigated beyond the echoes of his father's past as they begot new layers to confront. He couldn't lose sight of his purpose, the threads of vengeance interwoven with the moral code he struggled to define. Every inch forward encapsulated a collective question: who was he becoming? Arriving at Carlos's meeting spot, a back alley diner bathed in the glimmers of neon chaos, Jake felt his resolve steeled. He pushed through the door, instantly met with the din of chattering voices and sizzling kitchens. Carlos waved from a table, the weight of urgency a palpable force. "Jake," Carlos greeted curtly as he settled across from him. The tension sparked immediately. Jake held back, awaiting the bombshell Carlos was about to drop. "Larkin is moving. He's on to you," Carlos stated, eyes narrowing. "You need to act before he closes in." "What do you mean? How do you know this?" Jake demanded, allotting wary glances around him. "I have eyes everywhere," Carlos responded, his tone revealing the gravity behind his connections. "He's tightening his grasp, prioritizing damage control now that you're poking around. If you want to dismantle him, it begins with gaining intel on his operation." Jake felt a bitter resolve rising within him, a tempest brewing against the storm that was Larkin. "I have a lead. Evelyn shared that my father was involved. I might be able to find something there. Larkin manipulated him for his own purposes. That much is obvious." Carlos leaned back in his seat, eyes focused. "If you truly want to honor your father and carve a distinct path, digging into what Larkin has hidden will put you at the risk of losing everything, including your morals. The fine line between vengeance and justice can erode quickly." Jake swallowed a lump in his throat, allowing Carlos's warning to settle. Every word brought forth the undeniable truth: choice defined integrity. "Listen, I'm not going to repeat the cycle. I need to decide who I want to be, and I want to allow Larkin to define that." Carlos scrutinized him, as if weighing the depths of Jake's conviction, then nodded. "Good. If you go to Larkin's operation base, you need an ally, someone he trusts. But it's dangerous territory, a treacherous game we're playing. I'm prepared to accept the risk." The conviction in Jake's voice surprised even him. They were no longer mere whispers of vengeance. This was an act of reclamation, a bid to rip away the lurking shadows of what others had shaped him to be. "Then we strategize," Carlos said, igniting purpose in the atmosphere. The two men delved deep into conversation, unearthing every scrap of knowledge to fortify their plan while a storm hovered on the horizon above their heads. As Jake left the diner, he felt flames of commitment flickering within. He wasn't merely decoding his father's past, he was establishing a new legacy, one forged through accountability rather than conformity to dark influences. He would not let fate decide who he was meant to be. When the moon hung high, silver and luminous over his return journey, Jake's heart thrummed with aspiration. He was truly on the brink of transformation. In melding the legacy of his father's experiences with his own perspective, he stepped boldly into a future laden with shadows, holding on to the promise of light that lulled beneath. Tomorrow, the confrontation with Larkin awaited, a defining moment not solely regarding the adversarial shadow, but against the lingering whispers of his father's ghost. Jake understood that he stood poised at the precipice of self-discovery. As the night enveloped him, he whispered to himself, not in desperation, but in determination, "This time, I create the map." Now, the real journey began. Victory would no longer be about vengeance or legacy, it would come from the exploration of purpose, an unwavering commitment to forge an identity that reflected both the truth and the strength he championed. With a deep breath, Jake let the night envelop his spirit, ready to claim what was rightfully his: courage, clarity, and his own moral center. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support matters. Comment your reactions and theories about this transformative ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to show your support.